We have about 10 people in the room. I'll start off with a brief introduction and kind of walk you through some housekeeping items, and then we can open up into some question and answers. So my name is Matt Horn, and I'm the Public Works Director for the city. And so the Public Works Department manages the city's capital improvement projects, facilities maintenance, the urban forest, parks maintenance, streets maintenance, parking services, and transportation planning and engineering. So this breakout room is for infrastructure maintenance. So that's probably why Public Works is in this room. We do a fair amount of maintenance of the city's infrastructure. Staffing the room today, we have Greg Cruz, the city's maintenance operation manager, and Jennifer Thompson, the city's utilities business manager. Both Greg and Jennifer will be watching for raised hands or questions or in chats in the box, and we'll attempt to answer all your questions. Really, the intent of this breakout room is to get additional information about community priorities related to infrastructure maintenance, and along the way, we'll do our best to answer all your questions. So if you, just some general housekeeping items for this room. Please note this session is recorded. Feel free to turn your video on, and when you have a question, we'll unmute your mic for you. There's two ways to provide input. You can type it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and answer your question yourself. There's not a huge number of people in here, but if the room grows larger and we have a fair amount of questions, we'll ask you to keep your questions and comments brief so we can get to as many people in our allotted time. And then you can leave this room and join any other topic room you would like, and we'll rejoin the main Zoom session around 8:15. And with that, are there any questions or comments that we have regarding infrastructure maintenance that I can address?
Matt, it looks like Jackie and Ben have a question.
Wonderful.
You'll just have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yeah, so a couple questions. One would be about pedestrian safety. Globally, but on a specific concern is that our neighborhood met with the city last spring and was promised a project on Poinsettia and Tank Farm Road that has not occurred. And we continue to have pedestrian safety issues there. So that's a specific. And
okay.
Then on a general, and urban forestry would be looking ahead, it would be great to see the city encourage tree planting, perhaps through incentives to property owners to plant trees, perhaps some financial incentives, so that we can build out for climate change our urban forest.
Yeah, those are two wonderful questions. The first question on the Poinsettia and Tank Farm, I'm trying to, I believe we have a project coming up in that location fairly soon. So let me take the urban forestry question first while I search through my email to try to find a date for the Poinsettia. I'll try to multitask. The urban forest program by planting more trees, I think that's a wonderful idea, and I think that's something that's fairly easy to accomplish. The smallest expense, the smallest effort is the actual planting of the tree. And so if the city can facilitate property owners planting trees on their property, either by providing trees or helping assist that planting, that's a low cost win for the city. It's the annual maintenance, the watering, the pruning, the long-term care of the tree that really adds the expense to it. And so, yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea, and that's an easy win, I think, probably on a couple of different levels. and I told you I was going to search my email for the crossing information at the same time, but
It's okay. It is way behind schedule. It was actually supposed to have happened last summer.
yeah, and I apologize. We've had to dramatically reshift our priorities over the last 9 months or so. Some things we've had to put aside, and some things we've just put on the back burner. Actually the poinsettia crossing is an important item to complete, and I believe I might be confusing this with another crossing though. I believe we were attempting to get that done in the first quarter of 2021. But let me, oh, I know where I can find that information. Sorry. Do one thing.
You know, you don't actually have to provide the information this evening. Just, we've made it, made the point, and you can look into it when you have time. It's no problem.
No, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I'll keep searching though, and I'll try to answer that question when I come across the info. Is there any other questions that we can talk about while I try to find the poinsettia information?
I just wanted to add on the urban forest issue, the maintenance costs can be significant. And I know that the city has had to reduce the amount of maintenance just over time. Kind of the cycle that has gone from 7 years to 12 years. But it is important that it adds significant value to neighborhoods. In addition to the climate change issues, there's financial issues, it's benefits to property owners, and that doesn't always get considered in.
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct.
Matt, if you want to keep looking for that, I can fill Mr. and Mrs. Parker in with some information. I put my email address in the chat. The city has partnered with EcoSlow to help. I believe they have a goal of planting 10,000 new trees, and how many years that is, I don't know. But it is a pretty ambitious goal. And so there are opportunities through EcoSlow, both to sign up to help care for new trees, but also receive, possibly a tree to plant on your property. So my email's in the chat. If you'd like more information for that, please email me and I can certainly get you in touch with the right people.
Okay, great, thank you.
To answer your question about the increased timeline of urban forest maintenance, we certainly recognize that as an issue. 2 years ago, the city invested heavily in the capital side and increased the pruning budget to help contract out and help the small tree crew we do have. So we've seen a significant increase in pruning, and we're trying to get that pruning cycle down to around 5 to 6 years, which is more in line with industry standard. Mm-hmm. It's been, we're getting there. We did have quite a bit of backlog for different reasons. We're getting there, and we're very optimistic. Within the next 2 years, we'll certainly be able to get back into that 5 to 6 year range.
Mm-hmm. Can I switch us to roads and transportation?
Please.
Sure.
Okay, so widening of the 101 in specific areas would help create safer roadways for drivers and also prevent accidents. And it would also reduce VMTs from people being stuck in traffic. So it seems like it would accomplish several goals all in one. I'm wondering if you can address that. And specifically between Avila and Pismo Beach.
Sure. Yeah, let me take a crack at trying to answer that. So the 101 freeway is owned and maintained by Caltrans, the California Department of Transportation. While it does travel through many jurisdictions, cities and counties, it's the planning operation is completely done by Caltrans. That being said, there is a project that Caltrans is working on with SlowCog. I believe it's called the Shell Beach Straits, to actually widen. I shouldn't say widen, to improve the 101 through that corridor. They'll be doing it's proposed to be doing some lane modifications and using existing paved roadways for auxiliary lanes during peak traffic times. I would imagine the time horizon for that would probably be around the 4-year mark, though. It's early on in the project development stage. And Mr. and Mrs. Parker, I found the poinsettia information for you. The crossing has been, we've been working with Councilmember Pease to expedite the installation of that crossing. We're looking at doing it kind of on the latter part of February, getting that crossing improved at Poinsettia.
Thank you. That is really wonderful news. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Is there any other issues on refarm?
No, I don't think so.
Not seeing anybody's hands up. Feel free to raise your hand or type a question into the chat.
You know, and it's also a fairly small group. We can probably just speak freely if you like.
What are we doing with our electric grid issues? I mean, the city of SLO is going in an all-electric path, and we seem to have some significant electric grid issues that are in need of resolving. Is there any updates on that or anything you can shed on that?
Well, I don't have a lot of information for you on that. The city receives electric energy from PG&E. And so PG&E has been in the process over the last several years of trying to reduce fire danger associated with primary electrical line transmissions. And so they are working on improving their infrastructure, but that is a huge lift for PG&E to upgrade their infrastructure all at the same time. At a local level, we've been trying to provide more electricity, more charging stations in the city. We have a demonstration project behind City Hall where we have some electric vehicle charging via solar, so it's completely off grid. Additionally, the city's partnering with other, I guess, larger companies. We partner with Tesla to install a large battery at, I believe, the water treatment plant, but Jennifer Thompson can correct me if I got that one wrong. And then we're also partnering with another company to likely install, we haven't reached agreement yet, to install some additional charging stations at the Marsh Street parking garage. Jennifer, did I get the location of the Tesla battery correct?
Water treatment plant. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Wonderful.
So the city has approved some significant new developments around, and the construction activity has really increased, especially heavy trucks. And on like Tank Farm and many other roads, the damage to those roads, is there something that's built into the permitting process for those developments for the repair and maintenance of those roads that are being impacted?
For larger developments that have many truck trips, and so that's what we calculate the amount of deliveries, earthwork, large vehicles driving down the road. We map out a path of travel for those vehicles and the number of miles they'll travel within the city, and then we do a calculation to so roadways are thick sections, and they degrade primarily by two reasons. One is loading very heavy vehicles pounding on the roadway, and then of course water intrusion. So the larger vehicles wear the roads much faster than lighter vehicles. So we charge them the appropriate amount of an appropriate fee that over a period of time, we can handle so many large vehicles. They're taking up some of that space. And so we charge them a commensurate fee, and we put it into our street reconstruction and resurfacing program. And then we use it throughout the city to maintain all of the city streets.
Good.
That's good to know. Yeah. Back to trees a little bit. There does seem to be that we do have city trees that are really suffering. Probably a lot of them are suffering from lack of adequate water. So, I mean, there are many specific examples. If you looked at the tree health of just trees planted along Broad Street between, let's say, Orchid and South Street, there's a lot of trees that just are in poor condition. And then specifically, there are some newly planted trees on Victoria between Humbert and Lawrence that were never supplied with water when the Moylan Terrace development was put in, and those trees are really suffering.
Thank you for that information. I took notes. I believe Greg took notes as well. We can do two things. One is we can send some of our urban forest staff out to those locations to ensure that, well, one, to do an assessment on them to see how they're looking. It could be that for some reason we didn't get them on our watering cycle. So we have an urban forester that drives around and waters small trees until they get established. So they water the trees, they do small tree care. It could be that we weren't successful in connecting the development to the maintenance cycle, and we can look into that as well.
Yeah, I think what happened is that for whatever reason, when the developer built the Moylan Terrace condominiums, that they were allowed to put the trees in without supplying irrigation. And so the trees are suffering there, and they're fairly young trees. They're probably under 5 years old. So, you know, they are suffering.
And they're on track to be city street trees.
Yeah.
They're in the sidewalk.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not actually, you know, in the planted area of Moylan Terrace. And then, I mean, just around town, I mean, sure, we can all see cases where trees get a lot of damage from people breaking them off because they're young trees, et cetera. And I know it's really hard to keep up with all that.
It really is, but what I think I'm hearing you saying is the city needs to put an increased priority on our urban forest program, and you know that's we can accomplish that. We want to make sure that we know that's a priority, and then we can put it with all the other needs that we have. You're right. The city has approximately 20,000 urban forest trees, so kind of in the built environment. And those trees require much more maintenance and watering and, you know, care than a tree would be in a natural environment. So it does take quite a bit to get all that going. But I think Greg mentioned we're doing a fair enough. We're partnering with some nonprofit agencies to do some plantings. Taking care of those trees will be something that we need to work on as well.
What do you think about in the park areas? So for example, we live on Poinsettia Street, so we live very close to French Park. And French Park has a lot of large areas of lawn that aren't, and many of these large areas are not actually used for games, you know, like baseball or whatever. So there is an opportunity for tree planting. Also an opportunity at French Park for a dog park, which would really be welcome in the neighborhood. Even an informal dog park, you know, we went through a period of time when people were being ticketed for having their dogs off leash, and that created a lot of consternation when people would go out and exercise their dogs. But that would just be, you know, there is area in French Park for trees. There's area for dogs, so maybe that's something that could be, you know, looked at down the line.
Sure, yeah. One idea might be to contact Greg Cruz about the French Park trees. If you show them the locations where you think you might like them, we can do a couple of different things. One, during Arbor Day, we typically go out and pick a park and do a fair number of tree plantings there. Additionally, with our updated tree ordinance, when someone removes a tree on their property, they might not have the proper amount of space to plant another tree. Inside the municipal code indicates that, hey, if you don't have that space on your property, that's fine. You can just you can go out to a different location within the public right of way and plant 2 trees. That might be a good location if that kind of aligns with the French Park programming needs. An additional item for you might want to kind of keep on your radar is the Parks and Recreation Department are working on a recreational umbrella document that identifies, needs, community needs, and how we might be able to address them for recreation. I haven't reviewed that document yet, but coming to those hearings, coming to the meetings, you might be able to mention a desire for additional dog park at French Park, and that might be an appropriate use. I just don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, it looks like Mr. Amarin
Yes. Yeah,
has a
can you hear
question.
me?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm a avid cyclist and walker, and I was more of a cyclist and a walker until about 8 years ago when I was nailed by a car. And so I do a lot more walking, especially with my dog, but I still bike a lot. And I've noticed throughout the city, there are many streets that have underlying WPA, that's Work Progress Administration, 1940s concrete underlying structure. And they're all deteriorating. And a classic example is Palm Street from Phillips down to, let's say, Santa Rosa is an example, but they're all over the place. Lower Higuera, Monterey Street's really nasty now. These all have surface issues. The concrete is buckling and tearing and cracking over decades now, they're 75 years old. We need to deal with this, and I know it's a very expensive project to get this concrete out of there, or to grind it down and then put 3 or 4 inches of asphalted concrete on top of it. But we've got a real problem there. And it's the same thing with the sidewalks. When I live over near the railroad station, and I walk over to Foothill on occasion, at least once a week, and I notice especially on Churro, it's WPA 1940 sidewalk or gutters, and these haven't been repaired or replaced. And I know this is an ongoing problem, but we need to deal with this, not only from a walking standpoint on the sidewalks, but the bike lanes or the shoulders are just terrible. So, and if you try to ride your bike coasting down Monterey from, let's say, California down to the county offices, you can't even ride into the left in the share area because of the conditions. You have to weave all over the place. So I just wondered if Matt or Greg had any idea of the city's attempting to slowly work on this issue. Thank you.
Sure. Well, the intent of this room is to really try to extract priorities from the community related to infrastructure maintenance. And so what I heard loud and clear from you is the city should prioritize increased sidewalk maintenance and prioritize increased bicycle lane maintenance. So those
Well,
are.
it's not just bicycle, it's vehicle.
Oh, okay, that's great, because so increasing roadway maintenance, perhaps the whole entire roadway prism from back of sidewalk to back of sidewalk all the way through the road.
Right.
So that's a great priority. I share your desire to really invest in those facilities. I can tell you that from a maintenance standpoint, the city goes through the entire city once every 9 years in different zones, maintaining pavement. It's a very expensive item.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, our current asphalt value, just for the 134 miles of roadway the city maintains, our current asphalt value is $500 million of just asphalt on the ground. And so that ages, it needs to be repaired. One of the first things that kind of, as the roadway starts to deteriorate, one of the first things that you start to feel is the rideability of the roadway. It's jarring. It's not as smooth as it should be. But we could increase. Roadways are classified from 0 to 100. So 100 being best, and that's called the pavement condition index. And so the city's roadways are about a 70. So that's really good as far as, you know, roadway condition, but it always could be better. Our goal is actually to get it to 80. So continued investment in our roadways, increasing the amount of investment we put into both rehabilitation and the slurry projects that we do will help keep them useful for a longer period of time, reduce our ultimate maintenance cost, and provide a better user experience when folks want to use the roadway.
So Matt, sorry, Matt, I'll jump in here. I hear Myron also asking specifically about those roads that are concrete versus asphalt, and I'm wondering, are those on the same cycle when we rotate through and do the slurry seal, or are those separate infrastructure projects and would need to be kind of prioritized, funded, thought about differently? Like Dana Street, I think, was one that we did last year, right? Wasn't that concrete? And
that was
and you scraped it down and now it's asphalt and whew, done. So when it's the downtown cycle, will those streets, I think it is Palm that still has that big concrete section, will those get scraped down and converted to asphalt as part of that cycle, or is that a separate capital project?
Dana Street was taken as a separate capital project because of a couple of incidents that happened out there. Really, it should be handled with the street reconstruction and resurfacing program that we have. But the tough part about concrete streets is they last a long time. They have a wonderful structural section on them, but they're rough. And over the years, we've overlaid them. We use an asphalt overlay on the top of concrete, so you have all the structural strength, but you have the smoothness and rideability of asphalt concrete, the black material on top of it. It's really a matter of how much funding that we can put into it, how much the community wants to prioritize that work, because like for Dana Street, I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. I believe that was around $650,000 to do that short area. So so typically for a concrete street, you would grind it off and then just overlay it with a thin coat of asphalt, so about 2 inches. So 2 inches of asphalt for a bit of a block is around $650,000, and the cost typically, the cost will mirror the gasoline cost. So if gas cost is low, it'll be more. Okay.
If I may, an example I'll give you, Matt, is Palm from Pepper west to Santa Rosa.
Mm-hmm.
That's classic exposed WPA concrete.
Yeah.
It is not, it's 75 years old. It is nowhere near rideable or drivable. The city has, under the previous public works director, redone the intersections of Toro and Palm and Johnson and Palm. They redid the actual intersection, and it was totally replaced with new concrete. So that the intersections are great. It's getting between the intersections that's the issue. So the same thing with Monterey Street. You've got this underlying old concrete that's all broken up. I mean, it's literally Palm Street, for example, at Pepper. When it rains, the pieces of the concrete float and they squish when the vehicles go over it and the mud comes out and they get tilted. And the city's gone out and spackled over, if you will, with some concrete sand and take, the big holes out. But it's going to be a long-term project. And I hope that the same with the overlay system that you have for the 9 districts in the city or whatever it is, where you re-overlay and then you restripe, that we pick a a couple of blocks of the WPA concrete every year and deal with that. It's going to be a lifetime, several lifetimes worth of project, but I'd hope that we'd work on the infrastructure in that issue. Thank you.
Yeah, Myron, I think that's a great idea, and I would love to complete that work. I think I hear you wanting us to prioritize concrete streets and make them smoother, and I'm happy to champion that work for you.
Thank you.
See,
Mr.
Matt,
Parker? Yes. Sir.
yes, I wanted to offer up something that could save you some maintenance costs in the future, and that's with all these new developments that are going in, some of the infrastructure portions of that, they may not be getting as much attention as they should. And it's specifically one of the bike lanes that's up in the new Rigetti Ranch area. It's two parallel concrete ribbons, and where they're joined in the center, the concrete is kind of raised a little bit, so that joint is becoming wider and wider.
Like this wide.
And as that will just continue to get worse. And I know that the city hasn't, I don't believe, has accepted those yet, but that might be indicative of a lot of other situations with some of those developments, that they may not be doing quite the attention that they need to be on that portion of the development. And so the streets and the sidewalks, once those get accepted by the city, then the city's going to have that needing attention earlier. So I'd really encourage, and it may not be your shop, but the development departments, as far as the requirements of the construction and the final result, need to be inspected really well to keep it from becoming a maintenance issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm familiar with that piece of bike path at Rigetti Ranch. It has not been accepted. We have identified that as being an issue that will preclude us from accepting that bike line until it's corrected by the developer.
You know, I walk through there just, frequently, and it's not just the bike lane, which is terrible. Sidewalks, their tree planting, they have many trees that were so improperly planted, they're not going to thrive and already dying. So, these, I don't know if that's going to be the responsible of the city or if they're going to have an HOA to be responsible for those aspects, but maybe because of COVID, there's been less inspection. I'm not sure, but I really hope the city will hold them to a high standard before accepting these conditions.
Yeah, we will.
Good.
The developers typically will go through, do their work, sell their homes. Then after a period of time, the city will come through and accept the improvements after they've been established for a bit. Mm-hmm. So what happens is we inspect the work, everything looks okay. After a period of time, you'll start to see some anomalies pop up, a failure, something that hasn't been maintained, an issue. After that period of time, we go send an inspector out there. We look for those anomalies, require the developer to correct those. If they don't, then we take some of their bonding money and correct that, and then finally accept the improvements for public maintenance. But I will have our construction engineering manager go out and take a look at Rigetti Ranch to make sure that there's not anything out there that we need to address right now.
You might really want to have your urban forester check out the tree planting. They have literally just dug boxes, holes the size of the tree in the pot, which of course is not correct, and just plunked them in there. And so, when the tree is not properly planted as a baby tree, a young tree, you're really stunting its chances as an adult tree. So, if that's going to become a city responsibility, I think you really want to hold their feet to the fire on those kinds of things, because it's going to become a maintenance problem down the road.
Absolutely, yeah. In a well-planted tree, a young tree that's been well cared for, it costs less to maintain throughout the tree's life.
Right.
And Mr. Amarine has another question.
Yeah, I have another statement actually.
Or statement.
I'd like to point out where the road surfaces are made up of two different types of material, concrete and asphalt concrete or asphalt. The classic examples in my case is when I'm cycling, let's say up and down High Garra, the lower High Garra, the roadway is asphalt, and then there's a large, wide gutter pan, which is concrete. And the interface between these two surfaces, when they're first put in, are flush. And then because of temperature changes, weather, wearing or whatever, you get these differentials occurring, and you end up with a lip. And in some places, at the intersections like Horn Road and Suburban, where there's a concrete gutter that goes around the corner, the lip between, or the junction between the asphalt and the concrete can be as much as 2 inches. And if you ever get your wheelchair or your foot or your bike wheel in that lip, it'll take you down. And we really need to come up with a part of the program for the alternative transportation plan, the ATP, for both bikes and peds is to go out and have the biking and pedestrian community indicate where these issues are so you can grind them down or repair them in some manner. In most cases, it's a matter of just, if they're not really big and the actual surfaces are over a distance or equal or coplanar, it's just that interface that's an issue. It can be ground and eliminate a lot of problems. And again, I would give you a classic example. Short Street at Suburban is a classic example, but they're all over the city. And the other issue is the engineering specifications in the city for driveways, where cars go in and out when they they cut a driveway in. There's a lip between the gutter pan and the driveway itself, which is indicated in the city plan as 1 inch. And that's ridiculously high for wheelchairs and for cyclists to get, especially if they're doing an acute turn into a driveway. Now, throughout the downtown city area, they've ground those lips away, but the city is still putting in, and you can go around and find where all these new driveways are being put in, they're still putting the 1 inch lip in, which is a real nasty little item. And I've been trying to get the city, used to be the Bicycle Advisory Committee, now the Alternate Transportation Committee, to get that specification changed down to a 1/4 inch or a centimeter. And so that's another infrastructure maintenance thing. And you're going to have to grind the rest of them, but the new ones should come in with this shallow lip. Thank you.
So, okay, I hear what you're saying. Just a couple items for you. If when you notice these lips, you're more than welcome to put through a service request through the city's website. We can go out and grind the vertical displacement between the gutter and asphalt. When we pave roads, we also have a requirement that the contractor goes and grinds the AC flush with the gutter line before any type of maintenance overlay occurs. So there's a flush interface right there. Regarding the driveway design in the 1 inch lip, the 1 inch lip is intended to try to keep as much water in the street before it starts swirling into the driveway entrance. It's not intended to be an ADA path of travel, but I completely understand what you're saying about bicycles going and trying to mount and go up the driveway. That way, I've fallen myself trying to do that. So I hear what you're saying, and we can take a look at the vertical specification of our driveway standard and see if we can reduce that down a little bit.
Yeah, I'll send you the exact pages in the engineering specs for that. We need to get those changed. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I'm familiar with them.
Okay.
Yeah, my book's right over there.
Matt, there's a comment in the chat about additional street lighting around the community and in neighborhoods to help with safety.
Perfect, yes. That's been an ongoing effort for the city for, I believe, 4 years or so. We've heard from quite a number, I think primarily students, but others as well during the budget process, that installations of streetlights in and around Cal Poly are of value. We've increased the funding. I believe 4 years ago, we were putting in about $25,000 a year to install street lights. We've increased that 2 years ago to $75,000 per year per street light. But the actual installation cost of a city standard luminaire street light that's connected to PG&E is around $35,000 a pole. So what we've done, and we have a couple pilot projects where we're taking existing utility poles. So you've probably seen them when you're walking around. They're typically the wood poles with the utility lines running on top of them. We have a couple installations of solar luminaire lights that are up there, as well as just connecting to those existing power lines that are up there too. That dramatically reduces the cost of the installation to around $3,000 per light. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. We do have a streetlight program. It's funded at about $75,000 a year, and we may want to prioritize those installations. Are there any other questions?
Well, I was going to type this in, but I'll just say it. One more thing that occurs to me is that we have many street signs that have bleached out and faded to the point they're unreadable. So I'll just give you two examples. I think Lawrence, off of Broad, Lawrence and Humbert both are pretty much at that condition. They've gone from brown to pale aqua, and you really cannot read them. So I just wonder if you have a plan for replacing street signs through the city, and maybe finding a contractor that provides ones that are longer lasting. These are not really that old, you know, considering there are street signs probably in LA that have been there for 50, 60 years.
Sure, yeah. Are we talking with the brown signs with the
font?
I think those are, I would guess they're about 17 years old. The city went through and did one huge sweeping project to replace all the signs, I think back in 2003. Yeah, no, I agree with you. We do have a sidewalk, or excuse me, a sign program, our streets maintenance program, as they're going through different areas. So we talked about our pavement management plan. So we've divided the city into 9 areas. Our streets maintenance program actually goes through those same areas as well, looking for, they do asphalt repair, they do concrete repair, they look at street signs and different items while they're in that area. It could be that they missed a couple of signs that we need to pick up. It also could be that there's also a division of labor too, that sometimes our signals, if it's on like an intersection where there's where it's a controlled intersection with streetlights and all that, that may be a different program that picks that up, and it could be that we have a disconnect there. So I can research that and work on getting those corrected so we have proper signage that you can actually read.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you so much for letting us join this chat. We really appreciate it.
Oh,
We're
yeah,
gonna,
no, thanks
we're
for
going to
coming.
sign off, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or hands raised or?
Not right now.
Okay.
I'll jump in if I can.
Yes, sir.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm Alec Platos. I'm a resident here and I'm one of your city firefighters. How are you guys tonight?
Excellent.
Good.
Hey, I was just in a couple other chats, so they reminded us that we can jump back and forth. So I was jumping back into this one. So please let me know if I'm reiterating something that's been said or if I'm totally out of bounds on this. But in one of the other chats, there was a lot of discussion about the police department getting funded and being redone, which I know we've all talked about a lot. I just thought I would jump over here and see if there's been any discussion about any of our aging fire stations and the needs that we have as firefighters, especially looking towards the future. I don't know if that's been discussed in this forum yet, so I was going to ask about that.
No, primarily to date, or in the forums, we've spoken about roadway maintenance, sidewalk maintenance, and urban forestry maintenance. Public Works Department also is a facility maintenance center for the city. The Public Works Department drives building replacements and handles all that through our capital improvement program. You may be aware that the city recently completed a facilities master plan, which went through each fire station, looked at deficiencies, talked with different firefighters to ensure that the facility, to ensure that the existing facility either met the current needs and could be used for future needs, or what changes actually need to be made to those fire stations to improve them. So that's all documented in our facilities umbrella document. And actually, Alex, if you wouldn't mind sending me an email, I can shoot that document to you. So you can see what we're planning on, or what's on the horizon for the fire facilities. I think the primary issue that we're dealing with right now is we have a number of large projects that are coming through the pipe or coming to fruition soon. So we have a parking structure that we're working on. We have a building, a police building that they're working on. We have a Prado Road interchange that we're working on. So I think the primary thing is to try to meter the improvements over time. So one, we have the time to actually design and construct them properly, and then also to be able to fund them. The larger projects, the multi-million-dollar projects, especially in a facility, will require us to likely debt finance portions of that. And so we want to make sure our revenues and our debt are lining up appropriately, and we've put them in the proper pipeline.
And just to add to that, on the facilities master plan, the assessment of station 2, 3, and 4, there was a recommendation for replacement. It's just you guys have outgrown your programming needs at those stations. There was some changes recommended for station 1, some enhancements and expansions, but 2, 3, and 4 are definitely recommended for replacement.
I appreciate that. And I might have misclicked the wrong one. I kind of just thought when I saw infrastructure that would be the right one. Greg, you're absolutely right. I've heard that. I haven't dived deep, but I just wanted to make sure that was in the discussions as we're talking about things that are important to the community. Obviously, it's something that's important to myself and my coworkers. So I appreciate you guys, what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, and if you send us that email, I'll get you that facilities master or facilities umbrella document, and perhaps you could share it with some of your coworkers as well, so they know what's in the future, what's planned for the future.
I'll message it to you right now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Looks like we have Garrett Otto with your hand raised. Go ahead, Garrett. You need to unmute yourself.
Yep. Hey there. How's it going? So I guess what I would, I'm sure you probably heard other comments about, roadway maintenance and everything. I just kind of want to talk a little bit or make some recommendations on the way that we do some of our repaving of streets, where we kind of do these big chunks around town, and maybe there's a handful of residential neighborhoods in there that probably could go another few years without as much maintenance, and just making some recommendations that maybe we target some of our key corridors that have the potential to reconfigure our streets for a more multimodal access, whether that's building out better curb ramps in areas that are missing them, doing bulb outs, building protected bike lanes, just kind of rethinking the way that we resurface our streets to get the best benefit to enhance the way that people get around town, since that's going to be part of our major city goals as far as climate action and reducing greenhouse gases through transportation, making a more equitable transportation system so that people don't have to rely on vehicles, and really just making sure that we have this sustainable way so that people can get to and from their jobs without spending an arm and a leg to own a vehicle, or pay for gas, or try to afford maintenance on a vehicle.
Yeah, I hear you. So my takeaway from your comment was to prioritize perhaps arterials and collector streets for maintenance, and while we're doing that, ensure that we're putting in the appropriate bicycle facilities in compliance with perhaps the proposed ATP, hopefully soon to be adopted ATP in the early part of February.
Correct. That was trying to convey.
Got it. I'm on it.
And we're at 8 o'clock. And so I think it's time for everybody to switch back to the main room.
We're supposed to switch back to the main room at 8 or 8:15.
Let's see.
The slide says 8:15, but that could be old.
8:15.
8:15.
Oh, okay.
Well,
But now Greg chased everybody off, so.
Oh, well. Oops.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay, good.
see, Garrett Brisbane. Oh, that's really handy. Someone put a link to the main room in our chat. I was just sitting here and wondering, how do I get back there?
Yeah, that's part of my job. I have to post it every 5 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I guess if someone comes into the room, they can't see any previous chat. So you
Oh,
have to like keep putting it in there so new people can see it.
oh,
I didn't know that.
neither did I.
Yeah.
In my head, I was thinking that we actually didn't need 3 people to staff this room, but you kind of do.
Yeah, because there was actually people going like this, which you don't necessarily see unless you're scrolling and looking through the pictures. So
Yeah, absolutely.
whatever works. Yeah.
Oh. Natalie or Garrett, do you have any questions on infrastructure maintenance you want to chat about for the next couple minutes, or?
I just added in the chat, kind of summarizing. I know that some of this might go into the dots, so I've been trying to summarize kind of what I was trying to say. So basically, I think when we talk about infrastructure maintenance, we kind of leave out the term improvements, because many times when we're doing these maintenance, we have a huge opportunity for improvements. So if in the future, when we're talking about marketing this aspect as a city goal, I would love to also include the word improvements, because when I think about maintenance, we might just be maintaining and doing the status quo, when we really do have the opportunity to improve and enhance as part of this goal of ours.
Yeah. And honestly, I think if you look at our last slurry seal project, I'm not sure if you're, well, I'm sure you're aware that the last work we did with our roadway project, it was a maintenance project, but I think there was a lot of valuable improvements that were put down with it. We try to improve as much as we can within our scoped area, and try to meet all the different community needs with our projects as we build them. It's just sometimes it's a function of different desires in the community, not maybe wanting different things, so they don't get in, or perhaps it could be a function of monetary function that it was not able to complete. But specific to bicycle improvements, I think that ATP that is currently in draft mode will be a large help for shepherding forward improvements to the roadways to better accommodate bicycle traffic. And actually, it will dovetail nicely into climate action as well, if we're able to link those two things together.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I know that you are looking for opportunities to do that improvement. I always have a hard time trying to figure out where I want to make the push, because I feel like active transportation touches on so many different aspects, whether it is roadway maintenance and the ability to do improvements there, or climate action to get that mode shift, or diversity, equity, and inclusivity, and just making sure that people don't have to own a vehicle to safely get around our town. So it definitely is one of those things that kind of touches on many different aspects. And I know that you've got great staff that are looking for those improvements. Really, the wording is really just a marketing type of thing, where you're not just maintaining, you are looking for those improvements. If I could make that suggestion, if anything.
Matt, could you explain, like in layman's terms, what a quick build is and what a quick build project would be, and if we've had any in the city?
No, I guess quick build's a concept of doing the right thing quicker, faster, and cheaper. So typically with the projects that we would standard put out is, hey, if we want a divided bike lane to provide some separation, ultimately we'd like to saw cut out a portion of the roadway, put in a concrete curbing that will last, the test of time for a long period of time. Quick builds are more of the concept of okay, here's a roadway prism. Hey, we need to provide a protected or separate bike lane. Let's use cheaper, inexpensive materials and go out and do it right now. The benefit of that is you get the installation faster, And also too, is you get to test out the implementation at a low cost to see if it's the right fit for the roadway. I guess on the flip side, it makes, in my opinion, it makes a solid improvement very quickly, fairly cheaply. Conversely, though, if we allow the quick builds to remain in place, or we allow the lesser materials to try to last a longer duration of time, it creates an ongoing maintenance issue for staff. And so initially you're getting what you want pretty quickly, but over the long term, you're going to have some increased cost due to that. We see those with some of the glue down delineators, the white things you see in the roadway. That they periodically they get run over. That we have to go out and kind of fix those up. And additionally, there's kind of the unintended consequence portion of it too. That we've delineated a small portion of the roadway, and we actually can't get our maintenance equipment in there to keep them clean and safe there too. But we're getting better. We're trying to implement where we can, where it makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you.
I had a question about the new street sweeper that's been used in downtown primarily is where I've seen it. Is that a piece of equipment that can start being used for protected bike lanes, which aren't as wide and can't fit our traditional street sweepers?
So, Greg, do you want to give a rundown on the sidewalk maintenance program in the downtown?
Right, yeah, so depending on the bike lane, potentially, yeah, the smaller sweepers do have, may have the ability to get in there. We are looking at different approaches for this next financial plan because we know we're only going to get more protected bike lanes and those are only get harder for us. So how we go about cleaning those, we haven't exactly figured out because there's not a one catch-all solution, but we certainly, it is on our radar and we'll be requesting funding to make sure those do stay clean, you know, to the best of our abilities into the future. But that is one thing we've identified in the streets maintenance program. We're currently kind of going through costing of what will it take to make sure these protected bike lanes stay clean into the future, and how do we do that?
Hey, Greg, is it true that our current equipment can only go up a certain incline, and after a point in time that it won't function anymore?
That is true. It is battery operated, and so it's, you know, it's meant for it's really not meant for hills. You're absolutely right. No better way to say that than it likes flat surfaces because it is battery powered, which is great for the environment. That doesn't give it the propane or a gasoline powered unit would do on these particular units because they are so small, meant for little small, you know, very compact places. Sure. There's one trade-off, size versus power.
Yeah. Yeah, so Garrett, I guess the answer to the question is, yeah, we probably could, but it probably wouldn't work. And there's probably a lot of better equipment out there to actually get the job done in a more proficient manner.
Yeah, I only bring it up because it seems to be one of the barriers typically brought up and why we can't. I mean, we've got several areas that have the buffers that are key, that are these great opportunities to throw down some additional barriers, like on Los Osos Valley Road and South Broad Street, and it's hard to always hear that, like, we just can't clean them, so therefore we're not going to give you the protections. And I'm just looking for, hopefully, that, you know, some of the corridors where, until we get that equipment, that maybe we can start looking at getting some of those protective barriers in place on a temporary basis until you find the better piece of equipment to get.
Yeah, you know, as Greg Cruz mentioned, street sweeping right now for the city is we're probably 110, 120. We're trying to do, let me see, how do we frame this? we have more streets to sweep than we actually have the ability to sweep in a recurrence interval that meets, the community's desires. We'll be trying to augment our street sweeping budget, and then perhaps augment our equipment to be able to address, hopefully, the recently adopted ATP come July 1. So that if you wanted to type perhaps street sweeping into bike lanes or identify that as a priority, that would help us accomplish that need for the community. All right.
And we're now at the 8:15 time mark, which is the official time mark. It changed on me, and I apologize. My menu below was covering that 8:15.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you both. I really appreciate you
All
helping
right.
out with this.
Thank you.
No problem. Talk to you later.
Yeah.
All right, guys.